she is just an FII, a research excellence, quality excellence specialist. So I was like, please join this topic because it's made for you. Um, Hello.
Hi, Madhusmita.
Hi, Bhumika.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Bhumika.
Hi.
All joined. We haven't started yet. We were just chit chatting, so we're gonna start now. Okay, we're gonna start. So today's topic was more or less it more or less came by all of you because we have been discussing, especially on the group or especially on our calls, what is it that we do so well and how do we measure it. So we were having these conversations around psychometrics or validity, reliability. Then we were also talking about standards and affiliations for clinical psychologists or counselors and all of that. So a lot of that intrigued me and Gurleen, and we said, well, look, what is that standard of excellence? How do you know it's a job well done in psychology? And taking a step further, how does it relate to standards of excellence elsewhere in the world? Not to say what is good or bad, not to discuss these are great standards and these are not, but how does it compare and where do we need to go? So I think that is the idea today, to think about different areas of psychology that we approach it from. It can be excellence, it can be as a reader, as an enthusiast, it can be as a trainer, a coach, a mentor, psychologist, consultant, whatever it is. There is some sort of excellence you look at or some standard that you look at. So this is a little bit about exploring that. What is that excellence of standard? Where did it come from? And how does it measure against others? Does anybody have initial ideas on the topic, or what did you get from the title or the explanation?
So I have a wondering that as a psychologist or as a human being rather, how much of what we measure are we actually, like how much correctness is there in what we measure? Right? When you're trying to measure something, 10 किलो चावल है तो उसमें अगर आप गिनोगे तो उतने ही दाने होंगे जितने आप 4 या 6 बार और 10 किलो चावल निकालोगे, प्लस माइनस 20, 30, 40, whatever. But human behavior is so complicated and human beings are so complicated. I mean, the idea of research, standardizing research, all of that is well and good, but like at the core of it, when it is applied, when it reaches the grassroots level, when your research findings are actually making a difference, an impact, how much is it real? So that's just a wondering that I have. And even the way it trickles down from the lab to the real life, how much of it really translates?
Yeah,
Does it translate, and how well does it translate?
yeah. I love that point, Juhi, because there's this big discussion and debate that always goes on in psychology. What we do in research does not translate into practice. They have this massive difference. And I think you raise a good point. Is it because what we measure is not really reliable and can never be standardized?
Yeah, I'm just like I've never been able to come up with a nice answer or a satisfactory answer to that. So anybody can help me out here. That'll be nice. I
I
see
mean,
good happening.
I'm just thinking that you are actually right. Like, there are no fixed templates or like methods to measure effectiveness or excellence in the field of psychology because it is such a wide area. like
Yeah.
like Sakshi and I were discussing, like there are clinical psychologists. For them, the criteria of excellence must be different. Psychometricians, it's different. Organizational psychology is different. For teachers, it's different. So there's no like,
You know, in
yeah.
in like in clinical psychology, I can say I've studied it right for 2 years. I've not practiced it, but I live with bipolar. So I have met other people with bipolar who are so different than me. So you're telling me that your research that you did in a lab somewhere in some country is going to apply the same way to me as it does to another person. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It really doesn't, because I have my own biases and all of the jazz along with it. So just for clinical psychology, I can say that. So same way, students can say that, right? That हम एक दूसरे से इतने अलग हैं या इतने सेम नहीं हैं. So how do we really apply research to schools or apply research to so replicability becomes an issue. And also, I think this is an issue because psychology is a very new field. It's barely been a couple hundred years. If we were as old as, let's say, biology or the physical sciences, some amount of time would have passed for us to figure it out. I think we are still figuring it out.
I don't know how. So just on that point, Juhi, the nature of what we do is not going to change whether it's 100 years pass away or 10,000 years pass away. Right? We're still gonna be studying humans,
So,
and as long as we are studying humans, it's always gonna have this nuance that there is subjectivity. So I don't know if 100 years more will impact or affect that, because by the time you say, oh, 100 years later I can make this generalization, that generalization is already out of date and people have moved on and there are different things that are affecting us. So I don't know if it's time that is going to affect it, but I think what you're saying is very true, that in research or in practice there's this difference. I'm a psychometrician, so for me, I obviously talk about reliability and validity, and of course, there is standardization. But at the same time, I think, like you do, Juhi, if somebody comes to me and says, you all are in the same category and we can measure you by the same stick, it's not going to work. So then what is, let's take clinical psychology, for example. Perhaps you studied it, Juhi or Bhumika, I know you have. What is the measure of excellence and what is a job well done in clinical psychology?
Do you want to go ahead?
me? No. Go ahead.
Okay. So despite the fact again that I'm not, I'm not continuing with the typical psychotherapy and everything, but one thing that very highly applies not just for clinical psychologists, but for organizational psychologists, also for counseling psychologists, also for the kind of work that I do, is to understand that literally anyone and everyone, starting from your organization to people, come from varied backgrounds. If I say that I'm a CBT therapist or a CBT professional, and a client is coming with a past trauma and I'm still using CBT, I'm being very superficial, to be very honest, right? And I can say that, hey, I'm a CBT, I'll only do CBT. So you got to know what is your expertise and what the kind of client you can take, or at least be open to understand that there are people who are coming with multiple backgrounds. So specifically, if I talk about clinical psychology, there is a thing called eclectic approach, or there's a thing called I'll use this approach for who you are, right? If I need to go into past, I need to go into past for you. But if for someone is just a very typical set up the goal, use the action approach, I might use something like a CBT. So I feel that as a professional, if we understand that we have to be flexible with our approaches, we have to understand and respect the other professionals. Be very true to yourself. Like, I can't take your case, I can't take your case. Hey, I'll handle your case to someone else. Like, even at Meraki, we have mental health professionals on board, but we are very clear that if it's just a counseling case coming into the picture, we'll take it. If it's a clinical case, we recommend it to you. So that, if that level, that standard, we can get into ourselves, that know how much we know, understand how much we can give. So I think that can work pretty well with a lot of psychotherapists and clinical psychologists, so to say.
Yeah, I love that, Bhumika. I've written down the first step of excellence is understanding what you can't do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But in your own profession then, Bhumika, in career counseling, what is the excellence then? What is your standard of, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back?
Yeah. So even with myself, see, careers are like crazy. I say that I've given 5 years of my time in this career, and yet there are thousands of things that I'm not aware of. So what I've done is I've made a completely different vertical in Meraki counseling itself, where I say that, hey, if I don't know, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I know, I'll assist you. If I don't know, I'll pass you on to a mentor who's an industry expert. For example, finance. I would not know like extensive nuances of finance. I know you can go in finance and connect you directly with the industry expert. If I know it's a case, if it's not a career counseling case, it's a therapy case, I directly, direct you towards somebody else. So this is how I function in my particular area of forte, so to say.
And then, sorry, I'm pressing on it, but when they do come to you, Bhumika, and when you are talking to them, what is it that makes you say that went well or that was good?
Yeah, exactly this. Like, I know that this authenticity. Like, I know that I'm not sugarcoating, and I'd say that in the beginning. I know I'm not doing it just for the heck of, hey, you come and we'll charge you some amount of money and like boom, it's gone. Because at the end of the day, you have to be with yourself. You like can't sleep with that dissatisfactory feeling that what have I done? So authenticity is very important in this profession. And then yet again, like how a lot of random people come and say toxic positive quotes and all. So that really takes away the authenticity. So again, one measure that I would say is that I'm exactly being upfront. This is who I am. This is what my profession is, and यही मेरी limitation है. इससे आगे, if somebody says कि यार personal भी counseling session लो, no, I can't take it. I'm not made for it. So that.
I have a
And
question here.
Mhm.
Doesn't that become a very personal or a personal professional choice? Like, not every person would choose to do that, right? You have people who are out there misusing their titles, and a lot of them are not. First of all, it doesn't even the title doesn't even belong to them. They've taken up these big titles of whatever, psychologist, or I know someone who is a healer who calls herself a counselor.
Hmm. Yeah.
तो ये ऐसे लोग को समझाना तो छोड़ो, मतलब वो अपनी इट विल नॉट कम फ्रॉम देयर साइड, राइट? दिस measure of authentic self being used in the workplace.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say as well, Juhi, that I think that this is Bhumika and her excellence that she thinks about
Right.
authenticity as a standard, right? And perhaps this is what we need to do. So when we look at so if I am choosing a counselor next, or if my say I know somebody is gonna choose a career counselor, I think I will say make sure they're authentic and they're upfront with you, because this is how you do that in practice, right? Like I can say let's make authenticity a measure of excellence in international standards in APA in BPS, but it's not going to work like that. It's going to
Mm.
work when we say look at a counselor who's authentic and upfront with you. That is how we know they are good, or they have some standards of excellence. So I think these are the kind of points that I was thinking of collating today by the end of today. um, Interested to also know that when people read research, and I think all of us have at some point or the other read research articles or articles on psychology, what do we see as a reader that makes us this is a good research or not, or this is a reliable research or not?
In my opinion, I feel that it depends on who has done the research. So when I say who has done the research, it depends on like either the institution, the individual, or maybe a corporate. So let's say, for example, if Harvard Business School has done a research on psychology, for example, Wharton, or for example, let's say a corporate like EY or any like McKinsey, and anything that is like recognized or has a brand value. So it's an obvious thing that people would uh, see that okay, this is something that can be trusted or that can be seen as a reliable source as far as a research in psychology is concerned, or for that matter, it would be any body, any body which is like considered uh, like an authentic institution as far as psychology is concerned. So yeah, I think that is a very important factor as to who is doing the research. And also what I feel is it also depends upon the context. The context is very important. So when I what do I mean by the context is, let's say, where has the research been done? Is the research being conducted in the United States? Has the research being conducted in India, Middle East, etc.? That is, and I think also the third thing, in my opinion, which is a factor that constitutes a well done research is uh, how many people validate it. I mean, is it a fact, and like does the majority of the population acknowledge the same, or for that matter, what the research has been done, does it uh, validates, or does it matches to the opinion of a particular society in general? That could be one possibility. Yeah, but there's also a possibility that if a research has been done, it might contradict a school of thought or a belief system of a society, because a thought process is something that evolves with the period of time. So yeah, I think that these are the main criterias, I would say, that could constitute a good research.
I like your points, Chaitanya, that a lot of them are around. So obviously, checking the context and the background, that's a great one. Um, like you said, it can contradict, it can be same, or it can be something you never thought about. But I think a lot of what you mentioned is around face validity. So we look at it, we look at the institution, we are like, yep, that's the gospel, that's the Bible. They should be correct. Gulleen, you read a lot, and you're very
Somewhat.
research trained. So your thoughts on this?
I think credibility, like Chaitanya talked about, yeah, credibility is one point. But then credibility, I believe, is not everything. Just because a credible source is saying something does not mean that is right. So what I do is, like, for example, it's very difficult, I don't have one answer, but it's just that for the sake of example, let's say, if you personally believe that corporal punishment is bad, then if you go and Google it, then you will see like maybe 100 of researches where they will show that, okay, corporal punishment is bad. But if you believe that corporal punishment is good, then also you will find 100 researches which kind of believe that and have proven that corporal punishment is good. Now, what I personally do is I see both sides of the story. So I don't go with my personal belief system. I do have a hypothesis, or I do have a leaning. But whenever I'm researching, I'm actually finding out truth. So I'm researching even more, like both sides of the story. And I'm not saying what is right and what is wrong, because I don't know. Because proof to ho hi jayega, research to hai, already hai, it is already proven. So then it becomes very difficult. Right and wrong, I have no idea. So
Yeah.
these are my initial.
Gurleen, just to add to your point, I feel psychology or in life in general, I feel there's nothing right or wrong. I think your particular.
Your
It's
voice
about the
is breaking up.
perspective. It's about
You.
what you believe as an individual.
That is true, Chaitanya. But I think to Gurleen's point, I think there's a need to stop searching for the sake of validating your own opinion or your own thinking, but you actually need to search just to search. Just so instead of, for example, typing is corporal punishment bad, type corporal punishment, and then you get both sides. So that is how you develop an opinion instead of validating what you already know, because
Yeah.
there is so much research out there that whatever you think, it can be validated or backed by some research or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Like for example, Patanjali has come up with this COVID
Coronal, yeah.
tablets, and they have done studies on 100 people, like only 100 people, and they claim that it is effective based on that data. So they have proven it, but that doesn't mean it is right.
so exactly my point, Gulleen. So there are nuances in research. So I'll give you an example. When I was in my undergraduate, everybody in my class was a published researcher.
Yeah.
Everybody. Because everybody had conducted a small research and got it published somewhere. And that's when I started thinking, what is your criteria of publishing a research? And if this is your criteria, that you just do interviews on two people, then what is the research that I'm writing in my papers? Are those references even credible? So there is face validity, but then there is also looking at sample size. So I'll give you one quick tip that it's very silly. But what I do is I look at a research, and if I like it, I see what method they have used. For example, they have used, let's say, backward regression. I'll go on Google and I'll search criticisms for backward regression and then try to apply those criticisms in that paper. If they fit, I don't think that research is good enough. Or they did not take into account, some aspects, or I take into account those aspects when I quote it. If it's, if it doesn't have much criticism or it doesn't apply to the paper, good to go, standard of excellence, that can be my Bible. So these are, some things that I've developed over the years, just looking at how people just publish anything, and publishing houses don't even care anymore.
Right. I think one thing that helps me personally is good old common sense. I like if a research is saying something totally bizarre, and even if they have done it on 1,000 people or 10,000 people, that is 10,000 out of 7 billion people, right? So even so, there have been some, I can't quote them right now, I'm forgetting the names, but there have been some very bizarre researches that I've come across which were published in whatever journals of psychiatry, psychology, whatever. And then you just end up feeling like, okay, is this even real? So the minute you have this question that is this even real, is to kind of check for validity in your own head, that does this make sense? Does this make common sense to you? If it does or it doesn't, I think it's a decent parameter to go with to further read the research and invest your time in it or not.
I like that point too.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
very good point.
yeah. So I know there are trainers amongst us as well. So we have trainers and coaches and people who coach. What is your standard of excellence then? You know where I'm looking.
Uh,
Okay.
okay, so Sonali, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So I was the way I see myself as an excellent done an excellent job is when the client actually satisfied with the goal set and goal achieved. So if you can actually help someone to reach wherever they want to, like their destination, whichever method you use, it doesn't matter. Like like we talked that everyone is different, and like for example personalities are different, abilities are different, so you might have to use different techniques with everyone, like Bhumika said, that eclectic approach, right? So I think that happens in the field of organizational psychology as well, where you help the client to reach their destination with the help of techniques which are more or less customized specifically for the person. So
I
sorry.
sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I don't know what you apply, but I want to know, because my clients are just, they always want more and more. You can give them personalized solutions, you can give them, everything, you can give them more than what they pay for. They are never satisfied. So
Yeah,
client satisfaction is just through the roof.
that's the thing, right? Okay, so I'll share a short incident over here. Like very recently, I had a call with someone. It was more or less like an interview call, and I was talking to her in a very formal way, because I wanted to show my formal self to her, so that she knows how I am professionally. And then she was like, okay, but she had a lot of buts and ifs to my answers. And I was like, do you realize there's a method that I'm using here? I'm not actually answering your questions. I'm prodding you to answer my questions so that you reach to a destination where you want to go. So I use the Socratic method, where the client comes up with their own answers, like a set of possible solutions, which you later, so it's like you open the doors for the person, and then the person decides where to walk through.
Yeah, that's what we call coaching as well.
Right. So now the thing is that you are actually making the client satisfied by, one, giving him a sense of I have come up with my own solutions, and two, that they're working. Because like I've seen, like a lot of clients, all they need is reassurance that they are on the right track. They don't generally need direction. They need, I'm doing this, I'm here, I want to go there, but I'm not sure whether the path that I've chosen is right or not. So all you have to do is, give them some reassurance, some confidence. You believe in them so that they believe in themselves. Because by sorry, so by 2-3 sessions you get an idea that whether this person is actually able to reach their destination or not. If not, then you help them from here and there, if the person goes a lot here, then we push them here, and if the person goes a lot of this side, then we push them here. So we try to keep them on the path, but then again, it is just directing. We don't actually make decisions for them.
Interesting. So client reassurance and giving them less direction, more help. More
Yeah.
help?
Facilitation.
Interesting. I so in my trainings and one method, when I say that that's excellent is when I see 100% participation if there's training, and it doesn't have to be that everybody's speaking up, because I think a lot of mistakes that trainers or coaches make sometimes is saying 100% people should speak up, and that is when the training has gone really well. But actually, not 100% will speak people will speak up because they don't want to speak up. They engage with you in different ways. Somebody will be more engaging on the chat. Some people will do it more on video. Some people will just speak up. They have their different ways. So I think, again, understanding that their ways of participating and communicating are different, and taking all of that into account rather than a single metrics of everybody spoke up. And that's when the training went really well. So I think one is that. Anything else that people have? Yeah, Chaitanya. Yep.
Just to add to your point and Swarali's point, Sakshi, I feel that, I mean, not talking from a psychological perspective, just a very simple perspective. One of my teachers, he always, in HR, there is a uh, thing called training and development and learning and development. So when you talk about training, whether you are a trainer or a coach, I feel that the real satisfaction, or you can say any trainer or a training program is successful if you have influenced a certain behavior. So what I'm trying to say here is, when either you are a coach or a trainer, it is firstly it's about the learner is the hero of the program, and it's all about influencing or changing behaviors. So for example, let me give you an example. So for example, if let's say I'm weak in spoken and written English, so I have taken a certain course or a certain classes from someone. Now, what in my view, if suppose I am the instructor, how I would measure success, or for me, what would the satisfaction, how satisfaction would be defined, would be, is there any improvement with respect to the writing skills of an individual? Is there any change in vocabulary? Has his or her vocabulary improved? So that is how I look at it. It is irrespective of what metrics or what method you use to teach that concerned person. As long as you feel that there is a change in behavior, there is an improvement, uh, as in comparison to what the person was, I think there's nothing better than that.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna pick
I
on that
will.
very quickly a little bit. Madhusmita, I know, just super quick. You said how you feel that their behavior has changed. I think we need to change it from feeling to actually measuring how much their behavior has changed or thoughts have changed. Madhusmita, go.
I
Can't.
had,
Can't hear
hello,
you.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I will give a very relevant example because I was coached by someone and I am not a psychologist, but I was coached by a psychologist. So she was very good. And as a, as experience, I'll share like the kind of engagement she was having by asking the application, how I was using it, not only giving, step by step approach, but between the sessions, what kept me engaged is like she asking me what all we have taught about, how you have applied, by giving examples. So that is how she was assuring that whatever was principles or this was coached, whether it was applied at the right point, right time. It is not like, okay, theories, listening it, and then you look for instances where you apply. But actually, if you are not applying it, even though you have templates, tools, it will not measure it properly. Even at the end of the session, if you have a metric or if you have a questionnaire, are you satisfied with the coaching session? It will not serve the practical problem. That is what my personal experience was.
Yeah.
I love that. Gurleen, did you have any point?
No, I think you are right. I think the whole thing about those smiley sheets is like, yeah, people may have like a gala time in the classroom, but that doesn't mean they have learned anything or there would be any behavioral shift. But for me, like, I'm also a trainer, and I consider myself as an organizational psychologist and not a trainer only, because it's not that you only design the workshop and you just do it in the classroom. But for my work, like as an organizational psychologist, I think the job starts with identifying the problem. So many times, my clients, who people who are like HR senior managers or CEOs, they are not even aware of what exactly is wrong at grassroots level, ki fix karna kya hai, right? So for me, excellence starts from identifying the problems and right problems, because unless you're working on the right problems, no matter how good your solution is, it won't matter, because that is not the problem. So I invest a lot of time in diagnostics, identifying the right problems, and I speak to everybody. I speak to grassroots level, and I randomly pick people. I create like a questionnaire, like a FGD kind of a questionnaire, where I engage them in focus group discussions. For some leaders, I have one-on-one chats with them. So I invest a lot of time there. And then of course, beginning with the end in mind. So Kirkpatrick model, we are all aware of those. So actually beginning with what do we want to achieve by the end of this intervention? And I also ask my client that what do they want to achieve through this intervention? What does success look like to you? What behaviors do you want to reinforce through these interventions? What change would you like to see at the company level? And then matching it with my diagnostics, my insights. So I think it starts with identifying the right problem. And then there are a lot of models, like you can use design thinking principles, you can use ADDIE model to bring to give life to your content, basically. So these are some of the things that I use.
Yeah, and I think I always go for this one measurement, that is, did you leave them with good questions in mind?
Hmm.
So at the end of any session, any conversation, even if we have left them with enough like food for thought or a good question, I think that's a good measurement as well. And I think my final question before we close is, where are all these standards coming from? Where are we comparing them to? Are they coming from an international body? Is there any organization you guys follow?
Yeah, it depends actually. It depends from field to field. Like with like whether it is HR, whether it's psychology. I think that is one of our go-to thing for anything. So for example, if I talk about HR, many people rely on SHRM articles, or maybe Journal of International Management, Journal of Human Resource Management. So I think it really depends on the field as well, and also what is like the go-to thing for a certain field.
Yep. So that's my question. What is the go-to thing for you in psychology, or whatever aspect of psychology you're engaged with?
First
So
thing, sorry.
no, sorry. No, Surali, go ahead. Sorry.
Go on.
Okay, so for me, it like I'm not sure about psychology because like I'm not from the psychology background, but I can like tell you like about human resources that SHRM is one, then HR Katha is one, People Matters. So any articles or anything that has been published, maybe Harvard Business Review. So anything that is that is present in these things, I would say that they are somewhat reliable, if not completely. But yeah, I mean it gives that feeling of reliability and authenticity.
And face validity. what
Yeah, it depends actually.
what else? What are the go-to standards for our OB psychologists or
I was
career?
thinking about personal values, like the way I see it is like I don't go to an external body, do what you feel is right, like your gut instinct probably, because then you know that you're happy at the end of the day, and you don't have to, you don't have to validate your values and your job satisfaction at the end of the day, like via some other organizing body.
US will not let you practice on gut instinct. So if you want to get a certification in the US to practice as a psychologist, gut instinct won't work. You need affiliation or a research standard, and you need to show 10 years of experience of working according to a standardized body. That is why this session today. So to enable ourselves to work in a more internationally collaborative manner, or talk to people, or do projects with people, we have to understand where these ideas of excellence are coming from, what is good for them, what is great for them. And that is why, although it is great to have things like gut instinct and all of that, the idea is to spread awareness about what is excellent in our field, what is it that people are following, and where are we on that scale. So where, what work needs to go into. Any other bodies, Julie?
I don't have a body or anything that I follow per se, because I'm not purely in the psychology field. But whenever I work with people, I'm my standard of excellence is feedback. If the client is feeling better than they were yesterday, I think I made progress today with them. And I think that is a pat on my back and a pat on theirs too. Right? And if they're feeling worse, that's also fine. Then we can work, then we know, then like Gurleen said, you identify what is the right problem. So us time pe kya galat ja raha hai, kya, what has gone wrong or what has not worked. You do like a loop with them. So then it kind of works out. Right? So that's what I do.
I like that feedback. I would add to that. So I think feedback, but also documenting your feedback really well. So
Yeah.
if you can start documenting all the feedback that you're getting, it's a Word document, it's an Excel sheet, whatever. Starting it from day one will really help 10 years down the line if you want to make a career switch, get a license with the body, practice somewhere else. These are things we don't think about today. And then, when you're applying, you're like, oh my God, how do I evidence that? So I think collecting your evidences from day one is important.
Sakshi, just a question to you in relation to this. What do you think about feedback on social media? So let's say, for example, Juhi was mentioning about the concept of feedback. Let's say if she hasn't documented feedback in an Excel or a Word document, but she is actually getting a feedback through social media, let's say, for example, LinkedIn. So do you think that if even if the feedback is not documented, but it's there on the social media platform, will it be helpful to a certain extent, if not
Yeah.
completely?
Yeah, so I think it's helpful in the sense if you want to market yourself more and you want more people to reach out to you. But I'm going to give you a very practical incident. If you're applying for a license with a governing body, they won't look at your LinkedIn feedback. They will ask you to submit a document. So it's easy. You go on your social media where people are giving you feedback, copy paste it, write the name of the person, write their email, put it in a Word document or put it in an Excel. So then you can upload that. It's very practical,
Okay.
it's very small, but it's just those things that make the difference in the end.
I think I
Anything
would agree with what Juhi also said, and I might also agree a little bit of what Swarali said, that until we don't have a very substantiate system in India, it's very hard to say that what body do we follow. For example, UK has NHS. I know a friend of mine who's doing a psych deep from UK, and she's got vaccinated. I was like, wow, bro. I mean, India, my mental health professionals, though, it's not like if you're 60, then you just come away. So I was like, okay, this is something. So I mean, for us to reach that something, it will take time. Until then, until there's nothing substantiate here, I think working by a very hardcore scientist practitioner model, not just going by theory, but also evolving a lot by practice, a lot by seeing your clients, a lot by understanding where are we going wrong and where are we going right. So that's something which really, really, like when I see myself 4 years back and when I see myself now, I just see there's a drastic change, there's a drastic difference, and I know we have a way to go. So like as far as that bit was concerned, like हम रटते थे कि ethics क्या होते हैं, non-bias, active listening, this that. So we used to like ratify that. And now you know that, okay, why is it important for you to be empathetic? Why is it important for you to not have a very judgmental view? So that's what I think agree with right now, that have more of experience if possible.
On
That
the
really
point,
leads to evolve. Yeah.
I think Sakshi, I can make a point on that, because when you are saying that there is no standards like, written and proved and approved, like it has to be followed. The same thing we follow when we don't have a standard for business excellence also. So it's very relative and all this. So what we do in that case, we have a forum for best practices where people have come across, and it is very good to share among the community and who all will be benefited. That is the best platform to learn from who is doing what and at its best technical approach.
Love that. And I think that has given me an idea which I've written down. We probably need a best practice forum for psychology. So, not only highlighting some best practice work that our community has been doing or excellent work, that is research sound, but also practically makes sense. I think that is required, but then also having people there who can uh, generate some thought leadership around where it is going, especially no, I think Dubai and India market are very similar. India and a lot of South Asian markets are very similar in how they interact with psychology field. So it can be useful for us to develop sort of a desi gang of psychologists forum. So absolutely, that's an idea I've written down. I do not have the capacity to do it, but
Also, on the lines of what Bhumika was saying, that we have a long way to go. Rajya Sabha very recently has issued a bill of some kind, which says that councillors will now have to register themselves with the government.
Yeah.
It's on the way.
Check
It's
that
on
out.
those
Yeah.
lines. It's not 100% clear cut like that, but yeah, it's a step in the right direction. And when I read it, I wanted to party. Like it was
Yeah.
so
At
needed. It
at
was so
least we
needed.
are there. At least we have started. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A journey of 1,000 miles, 1,000 miles begins with a one step. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's something to cheer for. But yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think cheers to that. And I do feel that when we discuss these things, I think this community is at least 10 steps ahead of psychologists. That is why these topics are so difficult to talk about because we don't know, and a lot of it is subjective. But if the government is taking enough steps in the right direction, these topics and these thoughts and these discussions will add value then. So good job.
Also, before we leave, just add on this particular thing in the list that you have written down. IIBP, Indian Institute of Business Psychology. It is I know the founder of this field, Vijay Pandey, right? So, like, I have been in touch with him, and I think he's a really nice person. So, in case if we can come up with certain, a set of ground rules for business psychologists in India through IIBP, it would be really great. Like, now we have an institution, we just have to draft the structure.
He is a part of Glass Half Full, don't worry.
Yes. So,
yes.
I remembered it like halfway through I was talking.
Got it covered, Swarali. Thank you. But yeah, absolutely. Definitely, if you have thoughts and ideas, I will make a post about this on LinkedIn. So let's get the actions running as well and see how we can support. Gurleen, any last thoughts before we close?
No, I think it was a good session, learned a lot. Um, but having said that, in the end, the only conclusion is it's really subjective, and there is no one size fits all or a cookie cutter approach to measuring anything in psychology. So I think it is all about the right systems. जैसे अभी भी हम बात कर रहे थे that government has initiated something, so they have made a systemic change.
Right.
Even in our profession as psychologists, you can't like give a solution. You can only give some of the systemic suggestions that the company or the person can inculcate in their lives, and then only we will see change. Alone, like just us cannot do anything. We have to co-create things. So these are my last thoughts. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Gurleen, and cheers, everyone, and see you soon.
See you.
Yeah.
Have a good
See
weekend.
you guys. Yeah.
Bye.
Enjoy, guys. Bye, bye, guys.
Bye.